a place in Queens called Coventry. It was on Queens Boulevard. We didn't want to get lumped in with all the New York bands, all the glitter bands, so we went looking for our own club. So our first show was for the bartender in a bar. Nobody else showed up.
With the makeup?
Yeah, Kiss has always looked just like, Kiss
from day one
together. Yeah. Basically, there's tapes of us playing a club on Long Island, and we were doing all the songs that were on the first and second album. That's never really changed.
The very first reaction to where people started coming in droves, so to speak, to see what you were all about, what was that kind of reaction?
I remember getting up on stage in Long Island. This was in Amityville, I suppose a couple blocks from where that ghost house was. And people are drinking. I remember just putting our guitars down in one of the sections of the song and running out into the audience and making people put their drinks down and forcing them to clap their hands. Once, there was a pregnant girl in the front of the little club, and I sat on her lap, and she wasn't quite there. Apparently, anyway, it wasn't a nice thing to do. I think the baby's okay now, but there was a point there. And, but when we first walked in, the security guy there, the big guy, was going to knock us out. We were really scared of it. We'd lock ourselves in the dressing room, putting on our makeup, and we'd be answering the phone. People would call up and say, well, who's playing there tonight? We'd say, oh, the best band you ever saw, Kiss. They wear makeup. They do all kinds of strange things. People love them.
The bouncer, they hide from the bag.
And the club owners had no idea what we were doing. We refused to do any Rolling Stones or cover songs or anything. And he complained the first weekend. Second weekend, it sold out. And
he really used to get pissed because a bar does its business on liquor. And we were so loud that they couldn't hear anybody ordering drinks. But what happened over a period of a week or two is we were doing such a big business at the door that they didn't care, and it didn't really matter.
As long as the bouncer would be so anxious for the show that he'd come and knock on the door. Come on out, you guys, go on out now, And that sounds like Don. Like that security guy. I was thinking it's John Hart. Sounds just like that.
There's an interesting story about how you got the record companies to come and see you. The story along with the Brats. Tell our viewers about that's interesting.
We would rent our own concert hall. This was at the Diplomat Hotel, 43rd and 6th. Still there, I think. They haven't torn it down yet.
Home of reasonably priced prostitutes.
And we put on our own concert. We rented the hall, took the ads out in the newspaper, and actually had little contracts with the opening acts. But we were the opening acts. The Brats at that point were a more popular bass band. And we invited everybody to come, the record industry to come and see us. And we'd say in the invitation, complimentary ticket, showtime, 9:30. And of course, they'd come and see us, and by the time we were off, they'd leave. And the headline act, the Brats, would come on at 11 o'clock, and by that time...
Did they know that this was going on, meaning the Brats?
No, probably not.
I think
so, guys.
Yeah, probably what set us apart from a lot of the other bands is that we were kind of thinking along those kind of lines. It wasn't really enough to just get out and play.
No, we were serious about this. We wanted this to happen.
So you were going to pull on all the stops to
try and
do something. If we can, once Kiss has been successful, let's get into some negatives that I know you came across. How did you deal with them as far as the parents were concerned? Because I'm sure when they saw their children bring home an album and say, what is that?
We never, I guess...
Did you have any confrontations with parents?
No, I think we kind of took it as a compliment because we never really wanted to appeal to parents. Trouble with a lot of parents is they forget they were ever young. And we were never trying to be a critics band, and we were never trying to be the band that the parents approved of, because that's not what rock and roll is all about. Rock and roll is sex and freedom, two things that, and more sex, three things that a lot of adults fear, I guess.
That in the beginning, though, it is true that we would go out and open for acts from all the way from Savoy Brown to Manfred Mann, acts that were sort of on their last legs anyway. And we'd catch a lot of flack from, Roberta would call up and say, hey, we get a little flack, you get it?
I know.
But it wouldn't matter because even before our record came out, we would tour with these acts, and we'd have our logo on the stage and amps bigger than the headline act. And even once we went off the stage, our logo would be hanging above, the stage. This was before anybody ever really started to do that sort of stuff. It wasn't considered in vogue to hang those sort of a Las Vegas sign above the band. It was a little too gauche, but we didn't care about that stuff. We wanted to make an impression. and the logo would flash so bright that even when the other act was on, you'd still see Kiss in front of your eyes.
It was
warm and down.
Yeah, where was your first big hall that you played?
But that's it.
Garish.
That was Eileen. Didn't you remember Eileen Garish?
I'm sorry.
Let's go back again. Where was the first big hall that you played when you had, if you have to label it success?
We, well, it depends on what you consider success. To us in the beginning, success was being fourth on the bill playing the Palladium in New York, which is 3,800 seats. So to us, that was pretty big. We went from 1 week playing a club in Queens. 10 days later, we were playing there. And I was a chubette at that time, and I was wearing satin pants that broke.
You were a chubette?
Yeah. I had a fondness for things that tended to put weight on me, so I had these satin pants on, and I jumped up in the air, and they broke. And I had to hold the guitar in front of me all night to keep the pants from falling down.
There's almost nothing that was uneventful in anything we did. The very first show we did at the Academy of Music, New Year's Eve, 73, 74, was the very first time I tried to fire breathe in front of an audience, in front of a large audience anyway. And all I remember was that at one point the audience went nuts. And then somebody came up and put a towel, I think, over my head. I just thought it was a fan.
And a cane.
We'll give on. And I didn't realize it at the time, but the right side of my hair caught fire. And everybody thought, yeah, that's a great show. You're going to kill yourself for us, huh? Yeah, go ahead.
How much preparation goes into one of your concerts?
Usually. The H usually leads to the preparation.
Yeah. It takes a long time. I mean, while we were working on Creatures, the latest album, Creatures of the Night, we were also at the same time working on the stage design and putting a crew together. It took months and months. I mean, really every day. I'd say we were in the studio probably 14 or 20 hours a day, in addition to running to see that the stage looked right. We had a lot of work.
You have a success, 4 guys in a band, and one guy decides to leave.
Because one guy decides to change his lifestyle, pretty much. And
what goes through your mind now? You're successful, very successful now at this point. How do you go about replacing it, or do you replace it? Well,
even before that, you have to make certain priorities. You have to decide whether or not this is worth doing without the guy, whether or not your happiness depends on somebody else. And, while we're together, my happiness really is dependent on everybody else being happy. But if, look, what happened was Peter decided he wanted to get married and have a child. And that's what he wanted. He wanted to stay home and raise a baby. And at that point, in 79, we had to make a decision. And Kiss is more important than any one guy deciding that he wanted to change his lifestyle.
I think it was rough at first, only because when 4 guys have been through so much together, basically we met basically in the street. We would go around at night and glue the posters up, and then we would drive the equipment to the show and be our own roadies, and we all had this dream. I can remember Thanksgiving was turkey sandwiches in an unheated loft, so
that's the part of the business that a lot of people, I don't really think they accept. They think they see you now, they see where you are. They don't see the dues being paid.
Well, everybody is an overnight success because people don't realize that anything was happening before they became aware of you. I mean, all that time is obviously not recorded, and there's no stories about those kind of times. So when Peter decided to leave, we really had to sit down and say, well, does the band come first, or do we suddenly break up because somebody wants to leave? Well, the band is really much more important than any of its members. And I think the whole philosophy is that the band is an attitude and a way of life and a philosophy, and that's really the most important thing, not who's in the band.
All right, well, now you have to replace somebody.